About shifting loyalty. Remember that thing I was mentioning in the first part about why you're willing to walk back into some unbelievable places because somebody walked in for you? That's a powerful loyalty. Well, when treatment started to emerge, that loyalty base started to shift. I guarantee you can do a quick little exercise in your own mind. You think back to where it actually got kicked into motion for you. And I don't care where it is. You'll have a loyalty to that second to none. And there's little that you wouldn't do in that loyalty. I happen to have found AA in a maximum custody penitentiary. I believe that is the finest place in the world to recover. I just know it is. I mean, by God, I've been sober ever since. And I bet you I've told at least 10,000 people that that's what they ought to do. I've never had a taker, not a one. But the loyalty's there. Yeah? It'll just sort of etch itself in stone. Well, when treatment started to occur, counselor and sponsor started to become interchangeable terms. And loyalty had a different meaning. I'll give you an example. I love examples. I had a sort of a young fellow. Well, I'm glad y'all made it. Man, we were going under. Welcome. I always like to let people sneak in quietly. They were trying to get unnoticed coming in under the radar. I would round them off. What? A young fellow asked me about sponsoring him, and I take sponsorship pretty seriously. I'm going to have about a 2-hour meeting with somebody before I get into that. I mean, I spend more time buying a wheelbarrow than I do sponsorship sometimes. But I wanted to meet with this guy, so we met. And went in now here are the details of this thing. This guy's sober 13 years. And he told me that he just wasn't happy with the way things were going, that he had a sponsor, but it just didn't seem like it was working out well. And I said, okay, fine. I'll be glad to do it. The only thing I want you to do is responsibly discontinue that sponsorship. Thank the person for the service. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And he said, do you want to know who it is? I said, I don't need to know who it is. I don't really care. And he said, well, I'll tell you anyway. And it was his non-alcoholic counselor from treatment. And I tell you, I'm a fairly calm fellow, but I mean, my blood pressure was just going. I'm thinking, Jesus, how far off can you possibly get? And so I didn't want to say anything until so I could moderate. And so when I settled down, and I said, my friend, let me make a suggestion to you. He said, what? I said, let me suggest that you've never had a sponsor. What you've had is the world's longest aftercare plan. And isn't that what it is? Would it shock you to know that this fellow had never had a home group, had never sponsored anybody? Would that shock you? No, why would it? His basic affiliation, his basic loyalty was where he left. And he never let go. And he never grew as a member. So we had what we do when we meet is we negotiate how we're going to operate. You know, what I'll do, what I will expect of him, what he can expect of me. I want it understood so that we don't get surprised and disappointed when it doesn't work like I think it's going to work. So we like to work that out. So I told him, I said, well, now, in all fairness to you, I'll tell you this, that you're going to have a home group. Doesn't need to be mine. I don't care where you belong. I just want you to belong. You're going to have to get involved in service, and you're going to have to start sponsoring some folks. And he just kind of blanched a little bit because obviously he hadn't thought much about that kind of stuff. And he said, well, okay, I'll do it. And so, you know, as a matter of fact, Thursday night, we after our meeting, we're working with taking 10 people through the steps right now. And so we did that after the meeting. And he's turned into a fine fellow. He was our DCM. He's a GSR. He's a very active member of AA. But it's a real deal, eh, when you start looking at what happened. And it's not just a matter of two entities that don't hook up. There are people who are lost in that process of trying to transition from one to the other. And there's an awful lot when you've got a climate of kind of acrimony and writing it off and dismissing stuff. When you got that kind of climate, it makes it an uphill battle. So it's a troubling kind of a thing. It's something where we need to have. That's why we have a deal. I keep pointing at Bob because I know he's the end of the. No, I'm not worried about tape. I'm worried about your affiliation. That he's involved in the service world. And we have an entity called CPC, Cooperating with the Professional Community. And that's what that is. It's about how do we get cooperating relationships so that we can smoothly help make a transition and not stand off distant and pointing fingers. So a lot of that. I kind of emphasize that because I think that's the crux of some of what happened in terms of where we are today and things that we need to be attentive about.